Beatport Podcast. This podcast is full of good advice about the music industry and life in general, sending demos to labels and of course delves deep into the background story of our guest, who for this episode is the very likeable Alinka, whose stories take us back in time to the USSR and Chicago, Berlin, and woven between that we listen to her tracks and of course some select cuts from the Beatport team for your listening pleasure. I'm your host Tigerlight, and this is the Beatport Podcast in conversation with Alinka. Alinka, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Beatport.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's super exciting to have you here. Super exciting to hear about your label, and also you've got this amazing backstory that I found really fascinating, like digging into the parts of your life that are online in biographies and whatnot, and it'd be great to hear some extra stories, learn about how you've become the person that you are and the artist that you are, the producer that you are. So you were born in the Ukraine.
Yeah, I was born in the Ukraine. We can say how old I am. In 1980, so it was still the Soviet Union. So I actually speak Russian. I was I think everyone spoke Russian at that time, because Soviet Union. And I remember even like getting quiz where everyone's like, "Where are you from?" And we're like, "Russia." And it was just like I don't know if it was a nationalist thing, but it was just Soviet Union, yeah.
And with your parents, you spoke Ukrainian, right?
Russian.
Which is
so
Russian.
I don't even speak Ukrainian, actually.
Okay.
Because we only learned Russian. I still speak Russian, which actually is like my go-to in Berlin when my German is horrible, and a lot of people speak Russian, so.
And what about with your parents? Do you speak?
We speak Russian unless we're fighting, and then I can't get my point across, and then it turns into like Russian and English, depending on if their friends are around, and I have to...
Yeah.
You know.
So it's like your secret language.
If I'm getting yelled at, it's usually in Russian, but that doesn't happen so much anymore. I guess when I was younger, it was like, don't yell at me in public. Yeah. We're going to speak Russian so nobody knows what's happening.
I speak Swedish with my family, and it's always
awesome.
Good to have a little code language.
Yes, exactly. Especially, yeah. I used to get, I wasn't the most behaved child after high school, so that was good.
Okay.
It's like, yeah.
So you were a bit of a naughty one.
I wasn't naughty in my eyes because I was just like, I'm just going to the rave and I'll see you, after the weekend when I would come home from college and stuff. And they were like, I quit university to be a DJ, and I was like in one of the top business schools in the country at the time. And
wow. And how did your parents cope with that?
Not so great. At first it was just kind of like, we moved to this country for you. And then, I have a half brother now, but I was only child till I was 12, so I was kind of first generation in America, not born there, but like, we made this whole journey, and now you're gonna be what's a DJ?
Yeah, and so your mom was a classical pianist? Classical pianist?
She studied piano at the Russian Conservatory. That was her thing. So
wow.
She wanted to be a pianist, and now she's in real estate. But it's difficult, to have a career in music, and especially as a pianist in the States, it's kind of what it is. But she has a piano at home, so she enjoys it still.
And when you guys were living in the USSR, was she a pianist then?
No, I don't think she ever was a pianist. I think that's just what she studied, and then, we had a piano from when I was born, so that was like the first instrument I learned from when I could sit up and on the bench, basically. Like, I remember playing and reading notes and taking lessons. And
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it, but I had this dream of playing guitar. I don't know where it came from, maybe the television, but I just thought like people playing guitar are way cooler than people playing the piano. And I didn't really know anything about rock music or anything. I think it was just like some image that I'd seen in some cartoon or something, because we didn't really... we'd had no Western music, so it was just kind of classical music and piano, and my grandmother was obsessed with me learning piano. But I was like piano, ice skating, gymnastics, what else? Singing lessons, and painting. But I could only paint horses and skiers. I don't know if that was a reference to anything, but I was not very good. Not good at art or,
So... what about singing? How far did you get with that?
I hated it. So not very far. But I think at one point auditioned for like the Russian version of the Mickey Mouse Club. And I made it to the final audition. So I could have been one of those famous little long-haired girls singing on television, but
you would have been the Britney Spears of the Ukraine.
Well, I like to think my mother sabotaged my audition because she decided to get my tooth pulled before, and my whole face swelled up, and so half of my face was swollen from what I remember, and then I got cut. So thank you, Mother. I'm here today because of your awesome decisions, and it's probably better that I didn't end up in the Russian Mickey Mouse Club.
No.
It would have been a disaster for my future.
Yeah, dance music would have been very sad.
Yeah.
Although you did miss out on your, those residencies they do in Vegas. That's what they all end up doing.
I could have been Britney Spears.
Yeah, or Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton.
Great.
Rich.
But yeah, so that's amazing. So you were in the USSR and then your parents escaped and you went to Vienna for a year as part of the refugee journey that eventually took you to Chicago. What was that first initial phase like when you arrived in Chicago? Like, do you remember that culture shock?
Yeah, I think the whole process was a bit crazy because we weren't, like, my parents couldn't tell me that we were leaving Ukraine. They would have lost their jobs, and it was kind of looked down upon because you were, leaving your country and fleeing at the time. And so I thought we were going camping. I invited all my little friends, and then we just kind of left overnight, but I was told, like, that night that we were leaving, and then we ended up in Vienna. And Vienna was actually so beautiful, and even just going there, it was like, I remember I had a banana for the first time. I would stop in the streets and play with all the candy machines and just things at the grocery stores that we didn't have, and just everything was brand new. I mean, visually and culturally. So I think for a 7.5-year-old, it was pretty epic and also scary. And then Chicago was even crazier because it's so big, and it was just a whole new experience, but also it was exciting to finally settle because I knew that's where we were staying, and we had family there, and we had a support system, and I was immediately thrown into listening to the radio and hearing Michael Jackson and Madonna for the first time, and pop music and skateboarding and pop culture, and just everything was really fresh and different. So it was really exciting and scary because I didn't speak English and I didn't know what was happening, and
How long did it take you till you started to really get fluent?
I think as a kid it's really quick. So I learned German while we were in Vienna, so I was speaking German, and then English within probably 6 to 8 months. And also because I was watching a lot of TV and listening to the radio, it was just kind of really quick. Mm-hmm. I wish it was the same right now for my German, but
did it not come back from those times?
No. I mean, it came back a little bit, but I'm lucky that I speak Russian still, because that's it gets me by, with people that speak both. Like, I was at the doctor the other week, and we were literally he had Google Translate on his phone, and he was saying something in German and I would say in English. And then eventually I just looked at his phone, I saw Russian text, and I'm like, oh, you speak Russian? I just broke out in Russian, so the rest of it, it's a lot easier to have a conversation, but yeah. It took a bit of time.
So you just need to live in the east of Berlin for the rest of your life and you'll be fine.
Yes. And I need to exile myself into non-English speaking territory, I think.
you got to Chicago, you're soaking in all of this pop culture. Now you're living in Berlin. How do you root yourself when you've got these two really different cultures in your background, and now you're in Berlin? Like, is this home for you?
I think Berlin has felt more like home than anywhere I've lived, because it's also my first chosen home as an adult. Like Chicago, I ended up as a little kid, and then I was just scared to leave for years. And I think for 8 years I started saving money because I was like, I need to go somewhere else. I didn't know if it was going to be New York or LA or where at the time. And also, I left DJing for maybe 4 years, and I was just like doing band music and other things, and then that's how I met Sean J. Wright. But yeah, I didn't know, where home was going to be. I just started saving money for years and years, and then when I came to Berlin for the first time to do a gig, I was like, this is the place. It was the first place I felt like home.
When was that?
2015 in the spring.
Wow. So you've been on quite a life journey until you found what feels like home.
Yeah, and it feels more like home every day, but I think it's the first place that I felt like respected and kind of validated for my life and my choices and for music, and kind of it opened me up so much because of that, I think I gained more confidence as a DJ and as a musician, and also made so many friends. And yeah, it's just been, I think that was like the greatest blessing, finding Berlin.
Was it that Chicago, I've never been to Chicago, so forgive my ignorance, but was it that Chicago is closed-minded, or was it that you'd just been there so long that you were able to hear kind of blossom and break out?
I think I'd just been there so long that it was kind of, I was ready for something fresh, and nothing against Chicago. It's still like one of my favorite cities in the world, and my friends that are there are incredible, and I think the talent pool there is still the best in the world. It's an incredible city, but I think even in my personal life as well, I just needed something different. And I think culturally, like for whatever reason, I've just always related more. I felt more at home and more free in Europe. I don't know, and just the ability to travel, and I just felt like I need to open up as an adult to kind of different cultures. And Chicago is like a big melting pot, but I think here it's even amplified so much more, and because everything is so close and you can really travel more, I've seen so much more of the world and been able to kind of explore cultures and people and places. So it's just been such a growth, I think, personally as well, being here.
And what about musically?
Musically, I feel like it, not that I was limited ever in Chicago at all, but I think I've always had like a style of what I like. And I think moving here and hearing different people and how diverse the music community is, and also playing really long sets again, because every time I play, it's like 4+ hours. And I think it opened me up a lot musically, because I started buying different genres and more, just digging more. You play long sets. When I play Panorama, it's always 4 hours. I just did 5.5 at Buttons and About Blank, and it's nice because they trust you and they give you that freedom. So I can, I've always been kind of, I'm not like a one-note DJ, so I don't just do house music. I play techno and electro and Italo, and it's nice to have that time, because I feel like you can really grow. And I think when I got here, it was more house, and now it's more everything, which I've always liked. But it's just, yeah, I think I've grown a lot also from the community here. Is just so talented as well, like you hear people play, and it's just like when I heard Yab Yabzi for the first time, and I was like, oh, I love this music, and I haven't heard like sets like this in a long time, and just different people impacting what you do and inspiring you it's good. It's a good place.
This is Face the Truth by Sean J. Wright and Alinka.
been here before. We've overcome it. We can make it through this time. I just need to be able to trust you. No, I'm not saying it's all your fault. No, baby. I'm not trying to shift the blame. I'm accountable too. Please don't walk away. You know how much I love you. Turn around. Please turn around. We gotta face this truth. Turn around. Let me see you face the truth. Turn around. Let me see you face the truth. Turn around. Let me see you face the truth. Living this way is unhealthy. So much denial. So much shame. I don't need you to be perfect. Lord knows I'm not either. I just want you to love me. I just want you to need me. To take a chance with me. To be for me as much as I am for you. I'm sorry that I lied to you in the past. I realize I'm a part of this confusion. That I've hurt you, misled you, and left you with doubts. But I want to make amends, baby. I want you to trust me again. I want us to be able to face one another, face this world together, in truth. Turn around, let me see you face the truth. In total honesty. Turn around, side by side. Let me see you face the truth. Forever and ever. Turn around. Let me see you face the truth. Turn around. Let me see you face the truth.
So when I first heard electronic music, it was on the radio, like all my other experiences. I think I was 12 or 13 listening to like B96 and Q101 in Chicago had Sonic Boom. And it was like DJ Funk and Bad Boy Bill and just like, I didn't really know the culture of DJing, but I knew that there was something about the songs that I was hearing that was giving me so much energy. And so I was like making mixtapes for my basketball team for the warm up before the game and stuff like that, and just like taking tracks off the radio and cutting them up and putting tapes together. And that was my first like Cashmere, Percolator, and that kind of stuff. But I didn't know about the culture or what I was really listening to. I just knew I liked it. And then, yeah, basically as soon as I got to university, we had one club, and it was like 19 and over, and I just turned 19 my first week of school, and we went there, and that was it. It was like my first week of school. I found dance music because we had DJs from Chicago every Thursday. Sorry.
Banging the table with enthusiasm.
Sorry, boom. Yeah, it was just super exciting because it was kind of, I just fell in love with that instead of school, which was really not great for, I mean, I still got good grades, but I just went mental. I got so obsessed with it. It was like the first time I actually saw a DJ mixing, I became super obsessed, and I went home and went on the internet. It was like the start of Napster and the internet and all that, and I just went crazy and researched nonstop and like read articles and started buying loads of music and going to the record shop and going to that club 3 days a week. So it was just like this instant obsession that came from the radio, and then as soon as it was kind of in my face, that was it. Yeah.
You were hooked.
I was really hooked. I was crazy.
And when did you first do your first DJ gig? From those mixtapes to what, being at those clubs?
So I think I started school that August, and then I started going to the nightclub and started going to raves, and I think I spent like 9 months just going out 3 nights a week and going to parties and driving to raves on the weekend and going to Chicago. And then somehow at the end of the school year, I was like, I think I want to start DJ. I was actually at a party one day and I tried mixing, and then my friend was like, but I was trying to scratch. So it was like I had no idea how to mix. I was just standing there making noise, I think. And then got really excited because I thought I was going to be like the next Qbert, because I thought I was really good at scratching. But I bought 2 records and came to my friend's house and practiced scratching for 4 days. And then he came down the stairs and was like, yeah, my roommates and I, we need you to learn how to mix because we can't really sit here and listen to this horrible scratching anymore. It's really bad. So that was it. I was like, actually, that's a good idea. Why don't I learn how to mix? And so I went back home to Chicago, and I worked in a swimming pool 13 hours a day for the entire summer, like double shifts between different pools in a water park, and then bought records and was like passing out flyers for rave promoters and just trying to save as much money. And at the end of the summer, I got my turntables and my mixer and went back to school with like my full setup and my 1 crate of records, and I played 8 hours every day. Like I stopped going to class. I still did well on my tests, but that was it.
What were you studying?
Advertising.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And were you interested, because you were doing promo for the clubs, like was that just flyering, or were you interested in the marketing side as the
I wasn't interested at all in any of that. It was just kind of, I felt really conflicted because it was like I was going to one of the top schools and my parents were super proud, and I grew up in like a pretty normal environment where it's like, go to school and this is like your process. And as soon as I started mixing, I was like, I know that's what I want to do. I'm not going to last. And so it was really difficult to kind of tell the family as well, because I quit school to go DJ at the end of the year. But I got my first gig after 6 months. So I practiced 8 hours a day, and then I got a gig at that club that I used to go to.
So what did your parents think?
God, I don't know what went through their heads, but it was kind of like, we moved here for you from another country. And I mean, they were supportive. They're still super supportive, but it was kind of like, I mean, they weren't happy at first. They were like, you can move back to Chicago if you switch to the other college. And then I tried to study like computer science but I wasn't, it's like I did not go to class. I really just played records all day. So it didn't really, I mean, I just did that as an excuse to move back.
Yeah.
So I think it took them a while to get comfortable with what I'm doing. And now I think, now that I've moved to Berlin and, obviously I've dedicated my life to music fully, I think they're super supportive and they understand it. But I think in the States as well, it's kind of, like if you tell people you're a musician, they're like, okay, but what's your real job? And it's like that, I think that was a part of the reason of why I felt so pressured when I was younger, and even though I was getting gigs and traveling, like and touring even when I was 23, and I didn't really know how to turn it into a career or treat it like a job. I was just really excited to play, and so I was always doing like side jobs and doing things, but I never thought about like, oh, I should get an agent and I should raise my fee and I should actually like do this for a career, because you don't have that support system. Like everyone's just kind of like, what's your real job? What are you going to study? And so you feel super pressured to kind of, you know, figure your life out and not take it seriously. Whereas that's why Berlin was such a change, because I joked when I first got here, I was like, Berlin is like where my veterinarian, my doctor, my dentist asked me about playing in Berghain. Like every random adult knows and respects what you do, even if it's not their thing. And it's the first place I've been to that's like that, and it's supportive, and you feel like 20 years of your life choices aren't a mistake, you know? And that brings so much confidence, I think, as an artist to feel that way and to not feel like, you know, you've ruined your life by falling in love with something and pursuing it, you know?
Attention, love and affection. Time and attention, love and affection. Baby, baby, please don't go. I'm begging for, I need your time and attention, love and affection. Every day I want you more and more. I'm yearning for, I need your time and attention, love and affection. Tell me that you'll always love me so. I'm craving for, I need your time and attention, love and affection. Promise that you'll never let me go. I'm desperate for, I need your time and attention, love and affection. Time and attention, love and affection. Time and attention, love and affection. I don't wanna be chained to you. I got better things to do. I don't wanna be chained to you. I got better things to do.
You're listening to Time and Attention by Sean J. Wright and Alinka. You developed a very close friendship with your now label partner, Sean J. Wright, former Hercules and Love Affair vocalist. What is it about your creative and personal relationship that makes that so special, that chemistry just really work?
You know, I think just from the moment that we met, I remember the first time he came to my house. He's just such a special person, and he's so warm and not like anyone else, and really kind, and still the most talented person I've ever met. But you know, we both grew up in Chicago, and we just started talking about Casual Records and our favorite tracks, and then went to Queen at Smart Bar that night, and that was like, that's it, like we're instant friends. And from the moment we started working, it was just the level of like mutual respect and love that I think we have for each other is what drives it and makes it so easy, because I've tried to collaborate with people and just it never really works the same way. And with him, it was like we let each other be ourselves and we encourage each other, but there's no like, I don't mess with his vocals. He helps me with the music now, and he's learned to produce, and he's amazing, and he always got his ideas out, but he lets me do what I do. And there's no like, we don't argue. It's just like, if we're not feeling something, we start over, and it works really well. So we kind of just understand each other, but I think it's you know, just having that much respect for the person. And you know, for me, that's what it was, because Hercules, I feel like, saved my life kind of, because when I quit music and I was just sitting in my office job and miserable and trying to figure my life out, I would watch their videos, and it was the first time I was like, oh my God, it's people that look like me doing music that I love. And I had never really had that. I didn't think I would meet any of them, but it was just, that was the moment that I went home and started making music again. And then I randomly met Sean from the band that I was in, because my manager knew him and he had just moved back to Chicago.
This is when you were playing in a band?
Yeah,
you're saying?
I was producing, so it's still electronic.
Okay,
it's not like
okay.
I had like, there was like a vocalist and she played keys, and then I kind of produced it and did electronic stuff live, but I was not super into it. I mean, she's amazing and that, you know, the music, but I think through that I also learned that I don't want to be in a band. Like, I would love to produce for bands, but I don't want to deal with live.
People or live?
No, not people. Just it's not my thing, I think, at all. Like, DJing's fine, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm pretty introverted and I'm really shy. So like DJing was cool, because when I first saw DJs, they were, you know, when I played records, like I don't look up. I'm always mixing and I'm doing things, so I don't consciously think about entertaining people and people staring at me, but I think the band thing was like too much.
So that's interesting. Then when you're playing, do you have an idea of what you want to play? And when you say you're not looking up, we've had some DJs come on here and say, I go knowing what I'm going to play. Or I've got DJs that come on and say, I'm going to play my label's back catalogue or fresh tunes. And then other people that say, I'm just going to watch the crowd play loads of different genres and see which one bites. Like, yeah. What's your style?
I never know what I'm going to play. I think, honestly, it comes from me going out as someone that's in a club as a dancer and watching people react, and also me personally, like, I play stuff that I want to dance to. And I know what moves people, and I play things that I know people will dance to, and it's just like creating that energy level. So I do look up, but I don't, like, you know, I'm not one of those hands in the air staring, because I mix constantly. Like, I don't sit there and wait for the track to run out, because I'm from Chicago and that's not how I learned to do things. And so
how fast do you mix out?
Oh God, it depends on the tracks. I mean, some I let play, but I think, you know, even with records, I would play on 2 and sometimes 3 and throw in an acapella and have a record in my mouth and kind of...
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm not like super quick anymore. Berlin and the longer sets have taught me to like be more patient and let certain songs play, but I'm constantly mixing or throwing things in or looping things now, so I try to calm it down a little bit more. But yeah, I think I'll probably let things play for 2.5 minutes, and then I'm mixing on top of it or doing something at least, or throwing things in and out. So yeah, I mean, I do look up, but not long enough to sit there and dance with the crowd or shake hands or whatever. It's, yeah.
You're not doing a Nina Kravitz?
I'm not as entertaining. Nina's really cool and she's amazing at what she does and she's a great DJ, and I'm just super shy, and maybe I'll get there one day. I think if I have some vodka, when Sean is there, I will say, and I have more time, or if we're going back to back, I'm much more like interacting with the crowd. But I think I just grew up in that generation where like people didn't stare at the DJ, they came to dance, and the DJ didn't stare at the crowd, and they didn't have time to, you know, have their hand up in the air. They were mixing, so it was like, you know, that's what you do. And you watch them technically, and you watch people's hands, but you're not really like there for them to clap in your face and take selfies with them, if that makes sense. So I'm not one of those DJs, I guess.
This is Romantic Friend by Sean J. Wright and Alinka.
a special kind of lover like no other romantic friend. When you need someone to hold you with no pressure, I'll be your man. I'm a special kind of lover like no other romantic friend. When you need someone to hold you with no pressure, I'll be your man.
Working in a swimming pool, just to go back through the story
Yes,
that we're...
I was a lifeguard, and
You're
I'm
a
not a very
lifeguard.
good swimmer, so I'm really happy that nothing went down in that time. But yeah,
So this is excellent. No one needed your help, but luckily you did get the money together to get your first set of decks. You were helping to promote a night while you were studying marketing at university.
yes.
Around this time, is that when you got your residency, your 7-year residency?
The Smart Bar. So basically what happened was when I started going back to Chicago, I kept going to Gramophone Records, and I was buying records, and I met Justin Long and Sativa and like all the guys that work there, Mike Serafini. And Justin and I became really good friends, and I was still going to school then, and I think he came to DJ at my school, but when I moved back, our friendship kind of just kept developing, and so he started his dub leap party, I think like a month after I turned 21, and so he asked me to be an opening resident, and then that was kind of it, but that was 2 years into me DJing.
So from that experience, 7 years long, you must have done a lot of warm-up sets.
I did every warm-up set possible. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I did. Like, I was warming up for the guests that came to my college, and then Smart Bar was like, I mean, we would switch. It wasn't always a warm-up, but it was like, sometimes I would play for 4 hours in the beginning of the night, and then Justin would play, and if there was no other guests, we would play all night, and I would play at the end as well. But I played a lot with him, and he musically was like super influential and helped me buy records, and we played a lot together, even traveling as well at the time. So, but Smart Bar, I mean, I was still really fresh and kind of technically learning, and I will say I think I was pretty good. I mean, I did practice all the time, so it was like, I'm glad that I got to that point where I was comfortable. It's just gaining the confidence, but Smart Bar was like where I learned to play, so.
So if you had any advice for people starting out that maybe wanted to get a residency and be a warm-up DJ, what would be a couple of definite do's and a couple of definite don'ts?
I think there's such an art to being a warm-up DJ, and you really, the do is drop your ego entirely and don't walk in like you're headlining, because I've played with people in the recent years, and it's like you get to the club and there's nobody in there. I mean, not that there's nobody in there, but you know, it's like, and you're going 135 BPM and too loud, and you're not watching your level, and you know, that's harsh, and it makes it hard. And you should always think about like who's playing after you. You don't need to, you know, change your style or whatever, but that's your job. And you know, the warm-up DJ is like, it's harder to be a warm-up DJ than a headliner. I mean, it's very easy to walk into a club primetime and do what you do, and everyone's there to see you, but to start that room from nothing to the party, I mean, that's vital. It's like you're setting up the headliner, and also people will leave if it sucks. So the biggest thing is, you know, your job is basically like to entertain people and to do it humbly and to set up who's playing after you. And I literally took every gig when I was learning because I just wanted to play, and I played every hour and the end, the beginning, the headlining in Wisconsin, you know, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that's what you have to do, because you have to learn to technically adjust your nerves and your ears, and that's the only way to do it. But yeah, there's no gig too small. I think when you're starting out, it's just drop the ego, do your thing, and, you know, respect the party. I guess that's my only don't. Just don't, you know, you'll get to a place where you're headlining if you grow as a DJ, and I think that role is like, that's what taught me to be able to play different genres and to be able to play any time in the night. I think that education's like, that's the best education you can get as a resident. I hope that art doesn't get lost.
Brought to you by Sean J. Wright and Alinka, this is Time for Action.
system. Disrupt the status quo. Disrupt the system. Disrupt the status quo. Disrupt the system. Disrupt the status quo. Disrupt the system. Disrupt the status quo.
So I'm interested in knowing what your creative routine is like. How do you get the best out of you, and what does that look like on a weekly basis?
The label is definitely both me and Sean. And a lot of it is like, I found artists like on SoundCloud suggestions where I was like listening to something and they would send me and I was like, who is this? And buying their whole catalog, and like Macaulay, he's from Mexico, and finding Miho, and like half the producers that I play from South America was just like random. Yeah, and with the label, we've always, we wanted to have a label for us so that we could control our release schedule and put our friends on, and through that we found so many friends and artists, and so that's kind of, I don't know, we're still winging it, but it's good. We love Twirl, but as a producer, my process is literally sitting down and just starting from nothing and not having a plan. And then it either works or I start over. And that's just literally like our best tracks, I think we made in a few hours, and it just comes completely naturally out of nowhere. So it feels almost like an out-of-body experience. But I mean, I started producing 2003, and I didn't like anything I made for 10 years.
Wow. So you kept at it?
I kept at it. I couldn't say, I always sounded like myself. That's the thing. It's like, even then I could listen to those tracks and they're horrible, but it's still, you could hear that it's me. I think it's funny because I'm always like, I could never be a ghost producer because I sound too much like myself, and I'm so like, I'm not like a techie person. I'm not like a studio nerd. I had a voice and I had ideas, and it took me just that long to be able to express them in a way that they were started kind of really sounding like what I want them to. I think now actually I'm the most comfortable I've been, but it's still, I could hear even the tracks from 2013 that I did with Sean that I really like, but I'm like, I could hear our progression every year, and that's such a good thing. But it's always, I just sit down and start writing, and there's no, I can't like have an idea of what I want to do because it never works.
So there's not like a weekly kind of routine that you have? Like, do you have a studio day or a studio? Are you in the studio every day, or how does it look? Yeah,
it's usually every night, and then weekends, if I don't have any gigs, I'll wake up like at 6 a.m. and I'll start writing. And sometimes it's like I have insomnia and I can't sleep, and I'll just sit down and get an idea. And sometimes I'm at the club, like I went to the Beatport party last week and I just wrote lyrics in my head, and I have like loads of notes on my phone, and I know Sean does like voice notes with lyrics and stuff, and I have, if I have my laptop, I make stuff on the plane, and I have ideas that I ended up working on, and same with my phone. And yeah, I think it's always, but I've gotten really good at realizing when I need ear breaks creatively, and I just like, if something's not working, I take a week off and I just don't do anything, and then when I start over, it's like instant, and I can finish. I finished four remixes and a track between Christmas and the week after New Year's because I had deadlines, and I was like, you know what, just get it done. But like, I didn't work on music for 3 weeks before that, so when it came together, it was just like instant and everything just worked. Mm-hmm. That's not normal though. That's like, I went crazy after that and had the stomach virus, so you can't, yeah. I mean, you have to kind of balance it out, and I don't ever want to feel like I'm forcing it.
How do you keep your balance with this hectic lifestyle that...
I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still, I mean, I've calmed down a lot. I mean, I think when I was younger and I was touring and I was like 23, I didn't need to sleep for 2 days, and it was just like, I never felt exhausted, and I never had anxiety, and I didn't have to deal with hangovers. I mean, like nothing that, you know, you get older and it's like, oh my God, my body's completely changed and I need to sleep, and, you know, I can't be around people all the time, and anxiety and all these things come into play where, yeah, I'm still finding it, I think. It's always, I think it's a part of growing up. It's just, you know, I don't go out as much anymore, and I'm kind of, I eat healthy. I try to go to the gym. I'm doing like, you know, trying to keep it together, but yeah, it's difficult managing everything. I've also learned a lot about myself and what I need. Like, I do take days to be by myself and quiet time a lot more, and like, I notice in myself when I'm starting to get anxious or overwhelmed that I know that I need to spend, you know, some days alone. I do have a routine as far as like I eat healthy, and I try to go to the gym when I have time, and I go to Vabali here, and like, you know, I make sure that I'm taking care of myself. But I think for me it's more finding quiet time and like alone time, because I need that, especially when you're constantly, I think with like the social media thing and everything that came into play with artists, it's like I constantly feel like I'm being pulled in, you know, in so many directions, that I kind of need that space to be creative. And producing for me is that as well. Like if I sit down and I make music for 2 days, I feel completely calm, and that's like my calming factor. So that's a part of it. I mean, I just know things that are healing for me, and that, I guess that's my routine. So like if I get into modes, I just know like, okay, you need time to sleep, and you need to work on music, and you need to like turn off social media. So I do like timeline eradicator and kind of turn my messaging off. And I did that for the month I had all those deadlines, because I was like, I can't deal with Facebook. I don't need these messages. For the entire month before I play Berghain, I turned my phone off. Like I don't answer messages. I have an automated like artist thing because of the guest list messages, because it's just like it's endless, and I'm really nice, and it's very difficult for me to keep saying no to people and feel like a horrible human being, and you can't please everyone, and it's just, yeah. So that's my routine, is like getting off social media and making sure I make time for myself, I guess.
We spoke about this before we started recording, but that you can be an extrovert or live it and work in an extrovert culture and yet actually be an introvert.
Yeah.
And know when you need to kind of plug in,
yeah,
recharge.
Because I'm really like, if I'm around people, I kind of give all my energy, and like I love meeting people and talking to people, and I love traveling, but I think, you know, I forget that it also pulls a lot out of me. And as far, even making music as well, like when I finished all those tracks, I was like completely exhausted mentally, and it was like I didn't want to be around people. I just wanted to kind of go off on my own, and I forgot that that's something I need, and so I got sick again. It was like, it's hard because you have to realize like how much energy it takes up being social and constantly like giving parts of yourself out. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So how do you then deal with when you have a gig and then you get picked up? Do you say, I just want to go to my hotel and then come to the club later, or will you do the whole dinner that they take you out with all the people?
I do the dinner, and then I nap, and then I get to the club and I'm fine. Most of the promoters I play for are really nice, and I've played for the same ones again, and they're friends now. And so even when they're not, though, it's like I enjoy meeting people, because I mean, I still have the same friends for the last 20 years, and like I've connected with so many of my friends through this music, and people that I played for in 2003 are still some of my best friends in England and stuff. So it's like I enjoy meeting everybody, and especially if they're booking me, they're obviously interested in what I'm doing. So I feel like not obligated in a negative sense, but I want to be around them, and I want to get to know people. So yeah, it's a balance. Yeah, I definitely nap in between my set and after dinner, but I always try to participate, you know, a little bit. I'm still friends with half the drivers, which is funny. They send me like happy birthday messages and stuff, like, this is blah 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 from this promoter, remember me? I'm like, absolutely.
So how much do you think success in the music industry is related to networking and therefore partying with the right people?
You know, I think success in the music industry is also so loosely defined, whereas like I've had times where I'm down and I'm like, I don't have enough gigs, and you know, even I could play Berghain and it's just the best clubs in my life, and still like not be able to afford my rent, and people don't understand that, and they only see like your thing on the internet, and they're like, oh, your records are doing well, you have all this press, and I'm like, cool, yeah, and I still like have a day job, and you know, I travel and I'm working non-stop, and you don't feel successful all the time, even though you're successful in other people's eyes, and it's hard to kind of find that definition within yourself. And Sean's really good at, you know, kind of helping me find grounding and reminding me to be really grateful for everything, which I always am, but it's still, you know, when you're so stressed all the time, it's hard to find that. So I do networking, obviously it is important, but you know, it's funny, I always said like I've met half my friends at Berghain and my booking agent. and like other people. So I was like, maybe it's better if I don't stay home and make music and not see anybody, and I just go to the club and, you know, get opportunities that way. But I think it's important to, you know, be yourself and be original, because how many DJs do you meet in Berlin and in the world?
Well, in Berlin, it's like everybody is a DJ.
So you can't just like go out and, you know, I'm one of those people, like, I can't be in a club and talk. Like, I grew up in Chicago around amazing artists, and from when I was a little kid, like, I went to dinner with them, and nobody ever talked about what they're doing. They just kind of did it. And this was like the Derek Carters and Honey Dijon and, you know, Gene Ferris and my heroes. Like, they don't sit around and talk about their calendar and their gigs. That's just what they do. They just show up and they are the best thing ever. And so I don't want to go to the club and talk about my releases and my biography and whatever. Like, you can get that online. And so you have to know that networking, to me, networking is like meeting people and being yourself and making friends. And then you end up with friends and you help each other. But I don't sit there and I don't think it's good to come off like you need something from anyone, because you shouldn't. You should just be yourself. But yeah, obviously it helps to have friends with labels and to know promoters and whatnot. But I'm not really, like, I'm not a networker. I'm kind of I make friends kind of a person. I mean, I think everybody just wants people that they relate to, that they can trust, that are their friends for the right reasons. So I think when you meet, you know, a famous DJ or a promoter or whatever, like, I think the last thing that they want is for you to be like everyone else that is like wants something from them and tries to present that right away. I think it's better just to have genuine friendships and meet people that way, because then, you know, they help you for the right reasons and not because, you know, they need something or, you know.
I think that there's a lot more good people in the music industry than bad. There's a lot of really hungry people who would kind of walk over people's heads to get to where they want, but bad people are like few and far between.
Yeah, but super thirsty people are such a turn off to someone like me, because I am so introverted, and if someone constantly is just like I could tell that's their goal, it's just like to be famous and constantly, like, I can't take it. Like, I actually just like cringe and just want to be left alone because it's not me.
Does that happen with your label, that people approach you and they're like, oh, you're on a label, oh, you know?
When I wrote that track Basic, that was like a joke, like one of my first releases. I did that when I was like 23 because this person used to always annoy me when I went out, and it was just like, I don't want to hear about your like release schedule and your gigs. Like, I just don't care. I'm just at like the club trying to have a drink, and like, I don't want to talk about your resume. I'm not, you know, like, this is not an interview. Can we just hang out? And like, it's like people that don't say, hi, how are you? And you'll friend them because you might have friends in common. They just send you a SoundCloud link. And I think that's like, I'm like, unfriend. And I listen to every demo. If you actually send me a message, or if someone's like, I've worked on these tracks, can you listen to them? Also, how are you? It's nice to meet you. I like your music, blah, blah, blah. Not even like I like your music, but just like, can we have a conversation first before you shove internet links down my throat, kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing when you're approaching labels and artists. It's like, try to have connections with people, because they're more willing then to like take in what you're trying to give them. And even if you're super excited about it, it's like there's a tactful way of doing it and not making someone feel uncomfortable in the process, because a lot of us are like introverts and kind of calm and not pushy, and it's hard to deal with that, you know, when someone's constantly like, you feel like they want something from you, and when you can't provide it in return, you feel really awkward, and so it's kind of makes it not fun.
So if somebody approaches Twirl, your label that you run with Sean, then the advice is put in some nice fluffy, how are you, some cushioning between the links.
Say hello to someone, you know. Try to have a conversation, even if it's about the weather or like the politics or anything, just to have some kind of, you know, we're human beings. Like, you're not gonna walk up to someone in the street and be like, have you heard my record? And do you wanna read my interview? And here's my SoundCloud link. They would think you're crazy. So, you know, it's the same kind of approach. Like, if you're, you know, walking up to random people in the streets, you'd be like, hey, how are you? I do this and that. Do you want to listen to my music? And then maybe they'll, you know, think of it as a sales pitch. Like, you want someone to know who you are.
Yeah.
And you have to stand out, because everyone's a DJ and everyone makes music. I mean, here at Beatport, when you get like 25,000 releases a month, you have to have your own voice and you have to kind of stand out and be a person. It's like, that's a part of being an artist. It takes a long time to get there. That's the journey. And so you have to show that, I think, more so than anything. Of like, we try to sign interesting people in our friends and people that have a voice more so than, you know, we're not worried about having a top 100 hit. We're not worried about like, every DJ is going to play this. That's not what our label is. Our label is about creativity and artistry, I think, for us, and diversity, and, you know, putting people on that we believe in that also have a story as well, because that's how we are. Like, your whole life is a story, but, you know, just something to say. I think you could tell when someone really has something to say with their music. It's not just like, even, you know, you can have a simple 4/4 thing, but like those old Chicago tracks are super simple, but you can always, there's always a feeling and some kind of flavor attached to it. I don't know how to voice that right, but yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it is about interesting characters, and even if like the simplest people can be that, you know?
So for your label, start a conversation, this is who I am, have something about you, have something to say.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Don't be one of those people that sends an email and is like, I make 13 different genres and I'm on these labels that have nothing to do with each other, and I like these artists that have nothing to do with each other, because that says, like, literally I have no personality. I'm just going with every option, and that's the opposite of what somebody wants. Like, find yourself and find what you do, and people can tell that that's special, that's what you believe in. But when you're just like, yeah, I mean, I get a lot of those emails where it's like, I make 13 different genres, and I'm like, you should pick one, not one, but like, just sound like yourself and don't try to do this because it just sounds like you want to be famous, and that's not a good thing. I just want to know why you're special and why we should listen to this. And, you know, we're not snobby and weirdos, like why we should listen to this, but if that makes sense, I guess, you know. Like,
does it relate to your label? Does it relate to your back catalogue?
Yeah. Or have you heard our label? If you're sending us stuff that's, you know, 13 different genres, and, you know, do you actually know what we're about? That's important. Like, if you send things to a label, listen to the label. Like, figure out what music they're putting out and if your music belongs on that label. And even if you don't want to send demos, like, it's good to say, I like these tracks because of this. Like, I like these artists. I relate to you in this way. Here's my music. We'll always listen. I think we're super open, but you have to show that you care about what you're doing. And I think a part of that is like finding yourself and finding your identity. And I think every young producer, when you start, it's in the beginning, like, you're just trying to get out there, and you start to like almost sound like other people, not intentionally, but because you're technically learning how to get your voice out. But I think that's a part of like the journey, is finding how to sound like yourself. And so when you get to that point, that's kind of it, and then it takes off. But at that point, you should also know, like, this is me, this is what I want to say, and this is what I sound like. And then you kind of have an idea of labels that relate to that and artists that relate to that. So someone's sending you something that's like, I just make stuff to get me famous and I'm trying every angle, and I'm letting you know that, that's not attractive to anyone.
You're listening to Feel It by Matteo and Matos, which came out on the King Street Sounds label in 2012. 2019. It sounds like you and Sean are pretty busy giving advice to lots of people, which is amazing that you actually spend the time doing that. But what's going on with releases? You've got some pretty nice gigs as well coming up.
Yeah, I'm doing Sonar in Reykjavik for the first time, so that's super exciting. And I've never been to Iceland, so I've been like dreaming of the Blue Lagoon, and I'm super excited. I'm gonna stay for a few days and kind of do some artist excursions and whatnot. And then I'm doing off Sonar for Mesoplex's party for Illume and Lone Romantic, which is amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah, Barcelona is one of my favorite places. We do have a new Twirl in February, and Sean's first remix of Aria Negrot, also from Hercules and Love Affair, and Jason Kendig did a remix as well from Honey Sound System. So that's our next one. We're super excited. And then my winter work is all coming out in the next 3 months. So the first remix is for Hannah Holland for Baddie Bass, and that's out February 11th. And then I did one for 9 Records that's out in March. Medusa Odyssey. Palm, I did a remix for that. 9 Records is Tronic Youth, Neil, and that label's amazing. I play a lot of their stuff, so I'm super excited. And what else did I remix? Joyce Muniz for Gigolo Records. That's probably my favorite remix I've ever done, and Joyce is like one of my favorite badass friends.
What made it your favorite of all time?
Well, first off, it's Gigolo, and I've been a fan of Hell forever. And Joyce, I've been a fan of. I had Joyce folders on my drives way before we met, so I've been a fan of her productions forever. But I was really excited when she asked me to do it. But then when I heard the vocal, I I don't know how to explain it. It's the one that really like fit with my personality and when I'm making like my original stuff and what I would play. So I think it's one of the first ones I've done where I was like, I want to play this every set. This is the one. Like I just had that energy, and also something clicked with me as a producer. I mean, it's always like you have these moments every couple of years where something comes together, and now I think with these last remixes and last tracks, like something clicked where it's just really working. I don't know if it's my workflow or just something amazing has happened, so it's just been really nice since then. And then I remixed Joseph K for Ways and Odysseys label. There's a lot of interesting good tracks coming up.
You've had a lot of support from artists like Heidi, Maya Jane Coles, Ellen Alien. Which women in the industry at the moment are you looking at as role models for you?
The ones you've named, for sure. God, I have so many friends that are amazing. Lauren Flax, Joyce Muniz, Kim Ann Foxman, Ariana Grote, Miss Kitten forever. Just, God, there's so many. I'm gonna forget a million. Steffi Virginia, Hannah Holland. It's really hard. There's so many amazing women. I mean, it's endless, I think. I'm always kind of shocked when people are like, there's not enough women to book. And it's like, that's a joke. That's insane. Like, what are you talking about? They're not even all exposed yet. There are just so many talented. Violet and Harris Drew and Octa. I mean, there's a million. Evelyn Emerson, Orla. Tiana T, my really good friend, one of my favorite DJs. And Jennifer Cardini, of course, and Chloe Nightwave. Oh my God, there's so many women. If I forgot you, I'm really sorry. I know you're out there. Oh, Black Madonna, Honey Dijon. Oh my God. Yes. DJ Heather, Super Jane.
It's good list.
Yes.
She's
good.
sorry if she's forgotten anyone.
I'm very sorry. I'm trying.
Perfect. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and there's a lot of inspiring stuff in there, and I think some really useful stuff for artists, for people coming up, for lovers of dance music. Is there anything else that we've missed?
I think I talked a lot. I think that's okay. But we can save it for next time one day. Or if you see me in the club, you can come up to me and ask any questions you like.
But not about music.
About music, just maybe not my music or reading me off your record discography. Like I'm not a Discog salesman, and I just want to have a drink.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
A Gun original mix. Paris Acid Ball by Hannah Holland original mix, out on Batty Bass.
We have space. Are there any more?
You've been listening to the Beatport podcast with Alinka. I've been your host, Tigerlight. See you next time. Beatport podcast.